60% mental and 40% physical.
Math was never our strong suit, but breaking down Ohio State football is. Sit back and join us for Buckeye Grove Instant Access, part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network.
You can do it!
Brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com. Post-game thoughts, immediate analysis, and much, much more to put the big game into perspective. Without any further delay of game, here's your host, Kevin Noon.
Kevin, goddammit.
Hey, welcome to the Buckeye Grove Instant Access Show. If you were looking for the Rapid Reaction Show, well, guess what? It's now the BIA Show, so here we go. I told you many episodes ago I did not like that name, and we have a new one now. I am, of course, joined here with Keaton Maisano and Braden Moles, our fantastic interns, as we're here at Ohio Stadium, 76-5 Ohio State. Without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. You know, Keaton, what were your thoughts?
Just the dominant performance after the game kind of started off a little bit shaky for Ohio State. I thought Chase Young really flashed a lot during this game with 2 strip sacks. And then just the play of Justin Fields. He showed some real good flashes with his legs, which he hasn't really been using a lot early on just because of, I think, the game plan. They don't want to have him get hit a lot, but he was able to be very shifty, kind of reminded me a little bit of Braxton Miller, but all around just a great performance, kind of expected, but it's still impressive to see something as dominant for 4 quarters.
Really, what else is there to say? I mean, before the game, Chuck Martin had talked about, Ohio State having the first 85 picks at recess. I think it may have been more than that based on today's performance. Like Keaton had said, Chase Young with another dominant performance. Fields looked impressive as well. Running game took a bit of a step back this week compared to the impressive performance that J.K. Dobbins and Master Teague had last week. But overall, like Keaton said, just a dominant performance from basically every aspect of the team. You even had the blocked punt on special teams, and the turnovers. The special second quarter from the offense. So a lot of good things here.
Yeah, a lot of teams should be so lucky to have the problems of 227 yards not being all that impressive in terms of running the ball, but nobody really had a big game. But nobody had more than 11 carries either at that point. And let's not forget, too, not that it really would have changed anything. The final couple minutes of this game were just washed away. The rains and the lightning came. They suspended the game briefly, and I think everybody came to some clear heads there and said, I think we're good. I don't think we need to see the rest of this one. Jumping into the first quarter, though, it didn't get off to the type of start I think that everybody expected. I don't think that people are shocked by the final score of 76 for Ohio State, maybe not even 5 for Miami, but 5's an odd number, a safety to start things. What were your initial thoughts of just how this game got out of the gate?
My initial thoughts were maybe that, because whenever you're going to a game like Miami, Ohio, the coaches are always saying, like, hey, this is an important game, we're focused on this week. But right off the gate, everyone's probably thinking, well, they're probably looking ahead to Nebraska. So I was kind of expecting more sloppiness to continue throughout, like, the rest of the game. But Ohio State really kind of rallied the troops, and they really put a good performance through the rest of that game. From the halfway through the first quarter onward, they dominated 76 unanswered points, and it was just a great display. Really showed that they're focused on this year. They're going to play with an edge in every single game they're going to play. And I think that was really important for Ohio State. I think if you kind of have a sloppier game and maybe win this one like 42-20, it just feels off going into a game as big as Nebraska. So I think that was a good way to show that this team's different than last year's team, and I think Ryan Day's got to be happy with that.
I'm really not sure if there was much to take away from the first opening minutes. You had the punt get downed at the 1-yard line, so it was a weird start for the offense. It's unfortunate they had the safety, but those kind of things happen when you're backed up to your own 1-yard line. And then defensively, those first few drives, Miami, I imagine there were a handful of scripted plays in there. Miami was bringing their best on the first few drives, and obviously after that, Ohio State dominated. But I think, just the early combination of Ohio State getting a little bit of a weird start on offense and Miami coming out swinging led to the slow start.
Right, and then once they got past that, they put up 7 in the first quarter, and then they put up 42 in the second quarter. That probably is a record. It's definitely a record since 1960. I was sitting next to Braden in the press box, and he was jumping on all the websites and trying to track it down. We did find 34 against Florida. Florida A&M was the previous record, and at least since 1960. And Braden then started, the diligent worker that he is, started even digging deeper. And he's like, well, it wasn't in 60, it wasn't in 59. I'm like, all right, we'll figure that one out later. Defensively, Ohio State shut them down. I mean, they really did. 5 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, a couple of forced fumbles. Chase Young continuing to put up gargantuan numbers. I mean, he's really going to make teams think, in the upcoming draft, I mean, you may need a quarterback, but how do you pass on a guy like that?
Yeah, Chase Young just extremely impressive. And you got to remember, he's doing this without some of the key pieces on the defensive line not being there. I mean, they didn't have Jonathan Cooper. They didn't have Robert Landers, Tyreek Smith. There's some real pieces that teams are going to have to account for. And obviously everyone's going to say, like, hey, just double Chase Young. But then now you're leaving the door open for other talented players at Ohio State. So this defense should only, at least on paper, should only go up when they add these new pieces into the defense. And, yeah, Chase Young's just special. I mean, he beats this guy around the edge almost every play and just forcing the turnovers. He actually only came into the game with 2 forced fumbles, and now he has 4 on his career with 2 added in this game. But, yeah, just dominant performance by the defense, and it all starts with that defensive line.
I would say the defensive line and the pass rush had a great game. But then beyond that, secondary, Jeff Okudah gets his first career interception. So all-around good game from the secondary. A little shaky starting off. Miami was getting a few big chunk plays early on, but they adjusted well, especially after those first couple of drives, and then they were able to shut Miami down for the remaining 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to jump in as well about the Jeff Okudah interception. I mean, he's made a lot of big plays during his Ohio State career, but has not had the opportunity yet to get that interception. Well, that's been taken care of now. So, we talked to him in post game. He was beaming. He was definitely very happy to be able to get that. We'll talk about what this game means in terms of the big picture here in a second, but let's pay some bills. Egg Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's Hague, H2O.com. All right, we are back now. And, Ohio State sitting at 4-0. Of course, everybody who follows this team immediately chimes in. The best thing about being 4-0 is an opportunity to go 5-0. Urban Meyer's out there in L.A. doing his Fox thing. But, three non-conference games, and you have the Indiana game under their belt. But how much do we really know about this team at this point? I mean, they're getting ready to play some big games coming up here, starting with a trip to Lincoln to take on the Cornhuskers, who are currently in action as we're recording this. How much do we know about this team at this point?
I think we know a lot. We don't know a lot about the team when adversity hits, so that's going to be something we're going to see in the coming weeks. Playing on the road in Nebraska is going to be really challenging for the offense especially. And just playing a close game, we haven't seen how they react in that situation. But I think this domination, the habits that they are building these 4 games will carry over into the rest of the season. I mean, the defense's discipline has really caught my eye, especially the linebackers. Linebackers in the right position almost every single play, and they're making tackles, which has just been such a flip from last season. That's got to be refreshing for a lot of Ohio State fans. And then just offensively, the balance of the team. I mean, it's funny that we're saying that it's the rushing, which no one really had a great rushing day, but as a team they did well. They were able to open it up for the passing game, and just the distributing the ball to so many different wide receivers is really good for Ohio State, and it's really hard to defend an offense that is as diverse as Ohio State has been these 4 games.
I mean, based on today and what we've seen in the first few games, we know how good this team can be. We know they can put up 76 points. We know they can limit teams to 0 points. That they can pitch those shutouts. But I think moving forward, you still haven't quite seen the competition you'd want to see with who they're going up against. I mean, you have Nebraska coming up this week and then Michigan State the following week. But even those games have become a little less illustrious as the season has gone on. So I'm still not exactly sure when you're going to see that adversity you want to see from them before they get into the Wisconsins and the Michigan games later this season.
Just jumping into the Big Ten schedule today of what we saw, Rutgers was a 30-16 loser to Boston College. Indiana stepped out of conference as well, and they routed UConn 38-3. Michigan State bounced back after their ASU debacle to beat Northwestern 31-10. Then, of course, there's the last game, or as I said already, Nebraska and Illinois are playing right now. Wisconsin 35, Michigan 14, in a game that wasn't even that close. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that one. Keaton, why don't you take a swing at it?
Well, I think with any game, as big of a matchup as that game was, especially with the week to prepare, it really shows, because things won't catch you off guard as much. I mean, we knew coming into this game, Wisconsin's rushing attack was going to be the focus, and we also knew that their defense was one of the top ones in the country. So you would kind of expect Michigan, who'd been playing a little bit off the first couple of weeks, and with the bye week, that you would expect them to come in with a focus to shut down the run, make Wisconsin beat them in different ways, and they couldn't do it at all. I mean, Taylor ran all over them, and with Michigan, who'd fumbled a ton earlier in the season, they continue those bad habits in this game. So it's really now, it's as far as for Michigan goes going forward, is this team just not as good as people thought they were? Because it seems almost like it's beyond just being caught off guard or playing sloppy. I mean, they just don't seem to be able to correct any of the mistakes they've been making early in the season. And then for Wisconsin, how good is this team? I mean, it looked kind of lopsided. They hadn't given up a point going into that Michigan game. I mean, it could just be the opponents they were playing, but they stepped up. They dominated a Michigan team that a lot of people thought were supposed to be good going into the season. And just as far as their schedule goes, they'll have to roll into the horseshoe in a few weeks, and that's going to tell a lot about this team going forward. But, yeah, I mean, it really shows how this Big Ten race is shaping up to be, with Wisconsin being maybe the second best team in the conference.
We saw Michigan's game against Army, and at the time, a lot of people thought, just some minor yips they're working through, and eventually, as they get into their Wisconsin, the bigger part of their schedule, they'll improve. But it's starting to look like that Army may have been the rule and not the exception for the Wolverines. Like Keaton had mentioned, the issues with the fumbles, Shea Patterson just not really being an effective quarterback, the issues not being able to stop the run. I mean, 2 games in a row now, they're going to run the ball, and yet Michigan has still not been able to stop them. And then going to Wisconsin, like Keaton said, they kind of seem to be the competition of the Big Ten now. The game coming up where they come to Ohio Stadium, it's quickly turning into what people thought the Nebraska game was going to be for Ohio State in terms of a litmus test. That's not going to be the game that you kind of look at as, who wins this game, they are the top of the Big Ten, the premier team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Michigan couldn't run the ball today. We really did not see Zach Charbonnet. I think those of you who follow us on Buckeye Grove understand that whole significance there. Shea Patterson, really ineffective. They benched him. They brought in Dylan McCaffrey. He ended up getting knocked out of the game. It appears that he'll probably be going through the concussion protocol. They bring in Shea Patterson. He scores 14 points at the end in garbage time. A couple of plays where they just go up there and they throw it up there, and at that point, the Michigan receivers should have had a field day against the secondary for Wisconsin, because I think if you really look at where you can attack the Badgers, it is in the secondary, and there are going to be a lot of what if questions. But I think the biggest question that comes out of this is Jim Harbaugh the right guy for the job? They're not going to. They're not going to make a move tonight. They're not going to make a move tomorrow. They're probably not going to make a move this season. I could definitely see Jim Harbaugh saying to hell with this and just leaving before he would ever get fired. But what's in store in the future for that team up north?
It's tough to say, because everyone's going to be calling for his job, but you have to have someone in place to replace him that you're going to be confident in. You can't just fire somebody, because things can get worse. So I think for Michigan, I think they really just have to do some soul searching going forward. I mean, string together some wins against the opponents they're supposed to beat, and they really need to make some game plan. They need to change the style that they play, especially on defense. People have found a way to expose them, especially running crossing routes across the middle. The defense has trouble defending that kind of passing route. And then the rush defense, I think, is really concerning for Michigan. That's something that they've usually been pretty solid against, but it just seems like a total breakdown of this team, and I don't know if it's the spirit that went first or just the scheme, but it's really concerning going forward for them, and the season could easily snowball for them. So it's going to be telling if Harbaugh really has control of this team, if he can rally the troops, or if the season's just going to go down the can for them. But as far as Harbaugh goes, I think that he'll finish the season, and who knows what's going to happen after that.
And I think I don't think you meant to, but you alluded to the issue here, rallying the troops. they're his troops at this point. This is now we're going into year 1 or 2, with him having his guys. They bring in Josh Gaddis this offseason to help revitalize that offense, but it's gone absolutely nowhere. So you have to wonder, is he bringing in the right players for the program? Is he bringing in the right coaches for the program? Is he the right coach for the program? And I think, as they get into the games this season that would have been branded as a rivalry game last season that are quickly becoming not so much of a rivalry, we'll have to see how he performs in those big games because the track record so far does not speak well for him.
Right, and I think when you sit there and you look and you talk about, well, if it's not him, then who? I mean, I think the only name that's out there right now is somebody like Matt Campbell, formerly of Toledo, who's at Iowa State. I mean, he's always seemed to be kind of a bit of a hot name. I think that, people, when Urban stepped down, thought that maybe he might get a look as somebody just based on being – having those Ohio ties and whatnot, but you don't know if he's going to be the right answer. And if you can't follow Captain Khaki, Mr. Michigan man, I just don't know where they're gonna stand. So we're looking at the clock. We're already 16 minutes in, so we need to wrap this up. I'll just go one final speed round right now. One question, just short answer here. What is it that you're most curious about going into the Nebraska game?
The offense's ability to communicate and execute the offense on the road.
I agree. I mean, I think specifically with Fields, seeing him probably playing all 4 quarters for the first time this season, seeing how he, handles himself for a full 60 minutes against a Nebraska team, while maybe not the competition they were hyped up to be going into the season, still going to be a challenging game for Ohio State going into Lincoln.
Yeah, and I think my question is going to be what the pass-run balance is going to be with Justin Fields in that type of situation. Ryan Day talks about needing to win a game in the fourth quarter. While I don't know if the line is going to sit there and be all that close in this one, I expect a double-digit line. You just never know in that type of situation. Are they going to be willing to run Justin a little bit more? But, we'll have time to talk about that this week here at BuckeyeGrove.com. Thanks for listening to the Buckeye Grove Instant Access Show, the BIA. I'm taking into the infringing on the trademark of the defensive backfield. But for Keaton and Braden, I am Kevin, and thanks for joining us.
Be sure to stay up to date with Buckeye Grove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game, exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.